Hello and welcome to Rebel Finance School with a very special session today. Today is about decision making with maths, because most people make decisions based on emotion or common wisdom. Common wisdom like renting is throwing away money, pay off every debt before you invest, you need a brand new car because the old one might break down, like all of that common wisdom that's out there. And the problem with common wisdom is it is incomplete at best and downright wrong most of the time. And it's really quite fascinating. I had a young guy that was working for me many years ago, and he was looking at buying a new car because his car had broken down. And he said to me, I think I'm going to buy an Audi because it will cost less to run over the long term. And you can probably tell my reaction to that, like the Audi's going to cost less to run. So I actually wrote an article on my blog that was called Total Cost of Ownership. And I wrote it specifically for him to try and persuade him, don't buy an expensive car that's going to cause you problems. And he read the article and went, thanks for confirming everything I thought. I bought the Audi. I'm like, what are you doing? And he just didn't really understand the long-term finances of that stuff. And I was pulling my hair out at that point, trying to help him with his finances, because he always complained of not having enough money. And then he bought an expensive car. And so today is about using a spreadsheet to look at the financial impact of your decisions over time.
So we're going to be using Excel.
Yes.
And a lot of people go like, well, I don't have Excel. I see a few people in the chat saying that already. There is a free version of Excel, like the browser version that you can use, that Mark has just put in the chat. Thank you very much. It's in the YouTube description and we'll pop it in the YouTube chat now.
Exactly. So there is a free version. So you can just click on that, open it in your browser and be able to use it. Now, all of these like common wisdom sayings, they sound great, but quite often they're wrong. And if you do the maths, really, every decision has a cost. And the question is, are you happy to pay the cost? Because you can have anything, any life you want. The question is, are you willing to pay for it? Are you willing to? And when I say pay, it doesn't always mean money. It could mean time. It could mean energy. It could mean extra years in your job. That's the key bit.
And the tool that we've made for you, the financial forecasting tool, which is this spreadsheet, it shows you the costs of making decisions. So there's often all that emotion that comes with making a decision, but this is coupling that with some numbers to see actually what is the impact. So you might say, well, I really want this brand new car. That's going to cost me 3 years of extra working until I can retire. And am I okay with that? And either answer is absolutely fine. It's just knowing the cost. Another one might be, well, maybe I could downsize and quit work 5 years earlier. Do I want that? Am I willing to move house? Am I willing to change my living situation to get that? And again, either answer is okay, but it's just bringing that maths into it to couple it with the emotion and make a more rounded, informed decision.
So this is a decision-making tool. So we would love you, please, type Y in the chat if you're up to understanding more about the maths behind the decisions you're making. Type N if you're just going like, what the heck is this and why am I here? And type A for Apple. Okay, most people have pressed Y.
Why of all the fruits did you choose an apple, Alan?
Don't know. I don't know. Oh, I love it. There's a few hell yes. I love it. On YouTube, hello YouTubers. Steve, Kerry, Teresa, Caroline, Corinne, Lim, Keely, Nana, Anat. Everyone's here. Anat, hello. Thanks for joining the Rebel Ninjas. Laura Lee, everyone's here. Okay, most people have pressed Y. There's quite a few apples, which is very confusing, but we're just going to move on from that. All right. There are spreadsheets.
There are spreadsheets involved. And some of you might be like, I'm not good at spreadsheets yet. So we actually have some resources for you that we did actually as a result of doing the workshop that we did the first time 3 years ago. This is a rerun of that workshop we did 3 years ago. And we realized that not everyone is confident in Excel. So we did these extra resources to help you. So if you're struggling at any point, please do your best to follow along. And we have these resources for you to check out.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing that in the chat, Mark Rebel Ninja. It's in the YouTube chat and in the YouTube descriptions. And we actually first built a spreadsheet like this. We went to a financial independence event. It was an incredible event, and we were at that time a bit lost, confused, and we were wondering, do we invest in our ISA? Do we invest in our SIP? How are we ever going to make financial independence? And the guy we were with, his name was the mad scientist, Brandon. He has a great podcast, by the way. He was like, well, why don't you just build a spreadsheet to tell you the answer? And he sat us down.
You want to know what my reaction was? Like, oh, we get to do a spreadsheet. This is amazing.
And it was possibly the geekiest meeting you have ever seen in your life, of like 5 people sat around with laptops building spreadsheets going, what is the future of our money going to look like? But it completely changed the direction of our life. And I know that this spreadsheet has done that for a lot of other people. Now, content warning, this builds on Rebel Finance School. So if you have no idea what a broad-based global index fund is, start there. Also, we have examples for you tonight. These examples won't match your examples. Do not compare your pineapples, and we cannot do examples for every situation. So we're going to do the best we absolutely can with this. So just remember, fill out your own spreadsheet, run your own race.
And it is a hands-on thing that we're doing. So you're going to leave today with at least some way towards having your own spreadsheet, depending how much you manage to follow along as we go. And we will do our best to leave no one behind.
Exactly. So the ninjas are there ready to help answer questions, and so will we as we go. Now, the disclaimer. I don't have a slide for this. So we are not financial advisors. We are not financially regulated, and we do not play financial advisors on the internet. You can tell that because we don't wear suits.
You've got a shirt on today, though.
I do. Moving on.
This spreadsheet is a simplified forecasting tool, and we've made it simple deliberately. It's designed to help you think clearly, not get lost in complexity of too much going on this spreadsheet. So there's a couple of things that it doesn't do. It doesn't look at tax. We've got an international audience. It would be far too complicated to have all different tax things, and even within the same country, we'll all have different tax positions, situations. It doesn't allow for sequence of returns risk or any market volatility. It just assumes a straight, linear, steady growth. So as we all know, the stock market grows like this. The spreadsheet, it assumes that it goes like, depending which way around I need to do it, that it's just straight line, which we all know it doesn't do. We have deliberately kept it simple so that it's as user-friendly as possible. If you're a spreadsheet whiz and you want to develop it, by all means, take it, run with it, add in a bunch of different formulas, whatever you want to do with it. It is our gift to you to use however you wish. But what it does do amazingly well is shows the impact of your decisions over time, helps you compare different scenarios, lets you stress test your plan, and gives you a bit more clarity, or a lot more clarity as to what the impact of your different decisions are. So I think we've had enough setup, Alan. Should we go to the spreadsheets?
Let's go to the spreadsheet. So like, you should have all got an email with the spreadsheet in it. If you haven't, if you're on YouTube, it is in the description for the video. You can find it there. So where would that word come from? And Katie has put it in the chat now. So make sure you got the spreadsheet open. Katie is driving today. She's in charge. So we're going to show you the spreadsheet and go through it all. This is super exciting. Right, Katie, take us to the spreadsheets. Missy says accessing free Excel takes a minute. Yes, it can. Missy, if you're on Zoom, you can't pause us. If you're on YouTube, you can pause us and play along. And also, it still lives on YouTube to give you like the ability to follow along with us whenever you can. So this is the spreadsheet. The first tab you will go to is
the instructions tab. So no need to read this now if you're watching live. We're going to go through it and guide you along. But if you ever want to start again and understand what you're doing, then come to this sheet. We'll guide you through how to set it up.
Exactly.
We're going to jump to the playground tab. Is that right?
Yes, we're going to jump to the playground tab because this is actually where most of the magic happens.
So we're going to guide you through a high-level overview of how it works, and then we're going to guide you through actually filling in each section as we go. So first of all, this high-level bit is just to say, okay, we're going to put in how old you are, the current year, that's that first little bit. We're going to put in what your investments are, what your current investments are, that's this section here. You see my mouse?
Yeah, I can see your mouse.
Then we're going to have how much income you're going to have either now, currently, and or when you stop working. Then how much you're spending. where that spending comes from, whether that's from your any income
investments or income.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the two, aren't they? And then finally, anything that you are adding to those investments. So are you contributing to your
ISA, SIP,
yeah.
401k, Kiwi planner thingy.
And the example, the kind of the demo sheet, the template we've given you has UK terms in it. Just overwrite them with whatever makes sense for you wherever you are. So if you're in New Zealand, you might be putting Kiwi saver. If you're in the US, 401ks and Roth IRAs and all your fun stuff as well.
The spreadsheet is country agnostic.
Yes.
It literally works anywhere. Maths doesn't care where you were born, who you are, or what's going on with you. It will treat you the same. So just write over it and have a go with it.
And then finally, there's a little check to see whether you are using any gap that the spreadsheet knows that you have from what you put in before. So let's go.
That's the overview of what it is. We're going to start with the inputs and assumptions tab and start there. So if in your version, you click on inputs and assumptions, you'll see something like this. And there's a lot of people in the chat saying they have failed the anti-robot test to be able to get Excel, which is a bit annoying. One person put they were a little bit worried they are actually a robot because Microsoft has confirmed it.
That's possible. Okay, so look, if you are watching this live and you haven't managed to download Excel yet and it's taken you a while, I would say just follow along and watch what we're doing so that you can learn and do it as we go. That's one option. Option two is like come back when you have Excel. And this will always be on YouTube. If you're watching on catch up, just
pause us. Exactly.
Does that have all permutations?
I think so.
Chris says, how do you get to the assumptions bit? There are some tabs here along the bottom, and we've gone to the inputs and quick look outputs. It's just the second tab in the spreadsheet.
Exactly. Okay. Thanks, Missy. Okay, Sonia's got it on YouTube. That's great. So people are still here. They're with us. Please do send us comments as well because it helps us to know you are here. Perfect. Ariana's got it. Excellent. Den says, can it work in Google Sheets? Like you can create something like this in Google Sheets very easily as well. We haven't because we tend to do it on Excel, which is like a free version as well.
I think you can download it and then open it in Google Sheets.
You probably
I don't know if all the spread formulas will work. We haven't tested that.
Okay, people have got it. Excellent. So in this assumptions tab, this you will be familiar with this from us having you guided through the retirement calculator and different pieces. So the first assumption is stock market growth. It's set as default to 10%. So like just leave it for that because that is a good like estimation of what it could be. Then you've got inflation, which we've stuck at 3. The UK government's target is like 2.5%, but we stuck it as 3. Okay, SRF says, could you make it a bit bigger to
I think she wants my cursor to be bigger.
Oh, you want the cursor bigger? I'm not sure how we can do the cursor bigger.
Someone can teach me how to do that and I'll gladly do it.
And then basically the spreadsheet then works out what is called real stock market growth, which is stock market growth minus inflation. And that piece there is super important because if we use real stock market growth for everything we're doing today, it means you can always use today's figures. So even if we're looking forwards 20, 30, 40 years, you can still use today's figures. So if you say, I want to live off 40 grand a year, like 40 grand a year in 30 years time will be the same if we use real stock market growth, and it removes inflation from being a problem with this. That is the biggest cursor I've ever seen.
Screen, my cursor is massive, but it's still not that much bigger on what's coming up in Zoom. I'm doing my best.
Okay, we will keep going. So those are those bits. Your withdrawal rate is, we've set it at 4%. It doesn't actually change the figures, but it gives you a guide in the spreadsheet of what you can take out from your investments based on that. So you just leave it at 4 at the moment. Then we have annual spending, which is, this is kind of like, what are you spending? And one of the bits is we're just going to have a guess at what we're spending annually here. And then in the playground, you can up it or reduce it or change it based on the phases of your life. So you could have it higher in retirement, you could have it lower before retirement. You can then change that as you go. So what we want to do is put in an annual spending amount. And we're going to do a demo, aren't we?
Yeah, as we go through this, we've got a scenario, an example, like a case study that we're going to do throughout this little setup bit. So we're going to do this for a couple called Sarah and James. How much do they spend a year, Ellen?
Sarah and James are spending 40 grand a year. So we're going to put 40 grand a year in here. Oh, and a message from Mark on YouTube says, FYI, the Excel document will also open in Numbers on a Mac, which is a free app included with your Mac, which is amazing. Thank you, Mark. Okay, so you put your spending in that. That is the biggest cursor I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it's not showing that big on the Zoom. Anyway, we're getting distracted by the size of my cursor.
But we obviously don't compare, but that's as big as
there'll be no comparison going on here.
Okay, so we've done the spending. That is basically all that comes into that section. The quick look outputs, you will be able to test, and we'll explain about those after we have gone through the playground. So we'll go through the playground next.
I'm excited to go to the playground.
I know. Harry and Maria says, please, can you get a pineapple cursor? We should have thought about that. Maybe next time we'll get a pineapple cursor.
Harry and Maria, where were you 3 hours ago when I needed you? I think they're probably asleep there in New Zealand.
Okay, so we're going to move to the playground. Here is the playground. Oh, your cursor goes giant when you go down to the bottom. Anyway,
focus,
Ellen. So at the top left, you see year, person 1 and person 2. Your first decision is, are you filling out this spreadsheet for you as a couple, or are you filling it out for you as an individual? Or maybe you're actual single and you just want to leave a space next to it for the magic person to enter your life later. But you'll type your names in there.
Maybe you're quite happy single.
Maybe you're quite happy. Well, however you want to do it is fine with us.
Then what goes in here is the year, meaning the calendar year. So we put in 2025, which is when we're recording this, and you'll see that it automatically just flows down all the years for 60 years. You don't need to touch this. Throughout this spreadsheet, you only need to change the cells that are shaded in blue. Okay, then
we had a question from Claudia. Is the spending per person or combined, for example, if doing it for a household? And the answer is, if you're doing it for a household, you want the combined amount you spend as a household, because you'll also have combined income as well.
Yeah. So what we recommend that you do is you put the oldest person first, and we'll explain why we do that in the next little bit. So Sarah is
45.
Sarah's 45, so she goes first, and then James is 43. So just type their ages in there, and you can see the spreadsheet automatically fills their ages down for the next 60 years until they are 105 and 103.
Yeah, so it just adds 60 years to whatever age you are and runs it all the way through. This is how you can see your entire financial future. So it's starting to get exciting. Now, Katie, why is the ISAs and general investment accounts red?
I have done conditional formatting, which is very exciting. It just means that it automatically shades any cells that are negative in red. Why are they negative? It's because it's taken your spending out of there, and we haven't put any income or any investments, any freedom fund that you have in here. So we have not got the full picture. So just remember, you need to have everything in here before it's going to start to make any sense. This doesn't make any sense because we haven't put the starting position that they have in their freedom fund. We haven't put their income. We haven't put anything additional that they're contributing.
Yeah, so scroll across and show us where that spending number ended up, Katie.
Oh yeah, we put the spending in, didn't we? So we can see it here. So this is annual spending. I'll just select that column to show you what I'm talking about. This is the spending every year, and it just automatically links through to that tab where we put the spending in. You are welcome to change this, and that's one of the benefits of this spreadsheet over things like the retirement calculator that just assumes spending the same forevermore. You can change that at any year in the future, that it's going to go up a bit, down a bit, whatever you want, and one-off purchases and things like that. We'll show you examples as we go.
Well, let's show a quick example now there. So if you see Sarah becomes 50 in 2030, you could go, actually, James wants to spoil her and take her away. So that 1 year, they're going to spend 50,000.
And so I just typed that in that cell. My recommendation is that if you ever do something where it's a little bit different from the rest of that column, then you color it something else just to remind yourself. So you could put it in green and say, oh, hang on a minute, that makes me remember that that's changed. Because if we then go back and change the overall spending, that figure won't update anymore because you've broken that link to that bit. And you might be thinking, yeah, but what about inflation? As I going on, like, it won't be 40 grand, will it? Well, we've allowed for inflation because we allowed for that in the growth rate. So all of these figures can be in today's numbers, which makes it a lot easier, doesn't it?
Exactly. Okay. George asks, if I delete person two's column, will it still work?
It should do, yes.
So if you want to, you can just delete person two.
Just delete
if
James.
You don't like them, just delete them. We're not going to because we want to keep James.
It should all flow through.
Yeah. Okay, let's add in the investments.
So go on.
So we're going to now add in the investments, and this is basically where you would go to your net worth tracker and look up what you have in your different accounts. That's the key piece, and then you'd enter the figures here. So James and Sarah combined in their ISAs and general accounts have £80,000 saved up and invested. So that's what we're going to stick in there. You can see that it kind of adds the growth to it as it goes down, and it takes the spending off it. They don't have any income yet. So at the moment, like, we're just filling out the figures.
Why? And that's for both of them, right?
That's for both of them.
Why have we done that with it all combined in that first one?
Because they can access it at any age. So the first column is the accounts you can access at any age. So if you were in New Zealand, these would be the stuff outside your KiwiSaver that you can get to at any stage. This is the stuff you can get to your America taxable brokerage account and that sort of stuff. So we're doing that because, like, they are currently 45 and 43, so they can't access their SIPs and their pensions yet. So that's the stuff they can get to outside in.
And as we work along the columns, the idea is that it's the next batch of things that you can get to. So because Sarah's older than James, then the next thing that they can get to is Sarah's SIP. And they're thinking of their finances combined as a household. So they're thinking, like, James can access that money to enjoy as well. So
exactly. Sarah's SIP. Sarah has 80,000 in her SIP and 80,000, and James has 75,000 in his SIP. And you'll notice as Katie types the first number in the blue column, Excel goes away and sums up all the lines below, and it actually shows them growing by the real growth rate that you put in the inputs. So the calculations are all handled for you with those different things. You just type the first figure, and as Katie scrolled down, you can see the different amounts growing over time. Okay, cool. Are you all still here? Is everyone with us? Are you doing this yourself? Are you making progress? Are you okay?
Where would DB pensions fit in? Because that is a promised income amount, we are putting that in the next section. So that's coming up.
Exactly. Kat says, is the growth assuming you're not paying in anything else at this stage? Yes, we haven't got over to contributions, which we're going to add in a second and show people contributing them. Okay. Sari is just enjoying it. She says 2 farts to do it at the same time, so I'm just going to, like, watch along, which is cool. Would you include cash ISAs? David, we would not include cash ISAs because they don't grow. This investments bit is the stocks and shares stuff that you have invested that will actually grow over time. Cash ISAs, like, barely keep up with inflation, so they're not of much use when you're looking after yourself later on.
If you plan to invest those cash ISAs in the not too distant future, then I will allow it. I will allow it. But if you're not planning to, then no. I saw a question.
Monique says, "Are we include?" Go on.
Judith asked, the dashes in the red cells It's because they are minuses. So Judith's asking about these cells here. They are minus, and someone has asked, hang on, why is that all negative? Because the spreadsheet assumes that all of your spending is coming from that column.
Until we add income, which we're going to do in a bit. So let's work to get across this.
Let's do it.
And Monique had a question about 401ks. Monique says, are including USA work pensions and Social Security in the playground tab? Yes, Social Security will come in the income bit at a specific age, and we'll show you how to do that. Sarah says, do you include the government extra amount in the SIP? Yes, because it's your money.
Well, so this is the current balance that you have in your SIP. So it presumably, unless you just put some money in, it won't, all those government top-ups will have come already. We've got a bit when we put the contributions in that you can allow for it there.
Yes. Rob says, do you include premium bonds? Rob, no, because we would only ever use that for our emergency fund, and it doesn't grow like this stuff. So that's the absolutely important piece.
I'm just doing an example of what it might look like in New Zealand. So maybe this is like your non-Kiwi saver, your taxable part. Don't know what they call it. They normally call it investments, even though it's all investments. Anyway, and then Sarah's Kiwi Saver and Jane's Kiwi Saver. That's an example in New Zealand. In US, it might say taxable brokerage, if I could spell properly, and then
401k.
Yeah, it might say Sarah 401k and whatever else you can access at the same age as 401k. So you just do it in the order that you can get to them. Sarah's 2 years older than James, so hers come online first.
Michelle says, if you have no SIP, do you put 0 or leave the cell empty? Okay. Michelle, you would indeed, but when we're saying SIP, it's SIP and workplace pension. So your workplace pension would go in here as well. It means kind of defined contribution pensions that go in here. So these are like their workplace pensions and their SIPs all totaled up.
And the reason that we group them all together in here is because you can access those, generally speaking, at the same age. So we're just seeing what batch of things can we get to in what order.
Yeah. So that is all they've got. They're too old to have a LISA. Boo! They missed out on that like I did. Katie got one as well. So that's all their investments at the moment.
Should we keep going across?
Yeah, let's keep going across. Sonia says, this is so clever. I love it.
Oh, thanks, Sonia.
Thanks, Sonia. Just scroll down there for me. Okay, now we're moving across to the next section, which you've got.
Well, I think just to explain these last little columns in this section.
Let's do that first.
So this overall section is what you have invested. We're assuming in the stock market. If you have bonds and stuff in your SIPs and ISAs and things, then you're probably going to want to pull the growth rate down to allow for that in the assumptions bit. So then it just adds up everything that you have. So this is 235 in that first year, because you can see 80 plus 80 plus 75. It's just simply adding that. And this column's white. There's nothing blue here because the spreadsheet works it all out for you. And then what's this amount you could withdraw, Britt, Alan?
The amount you could withdraw takes the withdrawal rate that you put in the inputs and times your stocks by the withdrawal rate to show how much money you could live off at that withdrawal rate. And it's like a guide figure that will show you how to use later.
It's not, there's no, these numbers in that column, the amount you could withdraw is not used anywhere in the spreadsheet. So if you change that in the inputs tab, it just changes that column and nothing else.
Exactly.
Okay.
Claudia says, where would you put your cash LISA if you have one?
I would not put it in here because that's not something that you're going to be living off.
It's not an investment.
Yeah.
So we don't have it in there.
So this is just anything that's in your freedom fund. So if you've done Rebel Finance School, you've heard us talking about freedom fund. It doesn't include cash and things you're planning on spending in the short to medium term that you're just holding in cash. And it doesn't have a place for your valuable liability, so the value of your home. Although we're going to come on to an example as to how that might come in there later.
Exactly. So the next section is this annual income piece that you can see on the right-hand side of the screen. And Sarah and James both have jobs. So they both work you can see Katie changing the names. So this is Sarah's income, James's income. They are both earning 40 grand a year, but what we actually need to put in is what they earn after tax. So we need their after tax income. So this is where you would put your after tax income. They are earning 31,200 each. That's after tax, 40 grand, take off the UK tax. That's what you would be getting.
So should we put in that they're going to be working in their jobs for a while? How far down should we put these?
Well, this is the bit, isn't it? This is where you can start to see how it plays, because you can drag it down and go, what if I stop working in 10 years or 15 years? They need to work for some time. So let's drag it down for like 12 years or something like that to start with. And you'll see Katie's just like dragging down the income, and she like, that's fine. And you'll notice there you've got 31,200. That's their income each year. They're in fairly stable jobs. They're not expecting to be fired. So they just kind of drag out their income, and it's a prediction of what they're going to earn in the future. Okay. And then this is the bit where you've got DB pensions next. So DB pensions is like a promised income in the future. So what you would do is you'd like scroll down to the age that you're going to get it. So let's imagine Sarah had a DB pension she was going to get at 68. There she's 68, and she would just type in that box how much she is promised at that age, whatever it is, like 1,000 a year, 2,000 a year, 5,000 a year, whatever she would actually get in her hands from that DB pension. And then you would drag it down to show you're getting that every year afterwards. Cool.
So I've just dragged that down to the end of time, till her expiration, which actually that was just to show you in this example, Sarah doesn't just have that. So I'm just going to delete that.
Exactly. That's just the example. LJ on YouTube says, appreciate you can't address every situation, but is there a way to factor in future additions to the Freedom Fund? I have an apartment that will eventually be sold to boost it. Yes, there is. And we're going to show you that example. We're going to show you how to add future income, lump sums, all of that stuff. So I think we're going to cover most things, but we're going to work through it. Someone mentioned pay increases on income. So if we actually take the income of Sarah and James, this spreadsheet is all done in present value because we've allowed for inflation. So therefore, like if you imagine your job is going to increase along line inflation, you would just keep the figures exactly the same as they are. If your job is going to increase in income more than inflation, like you're going to get promoted because someone loves your work, you're going to get a 10K income, then you might just add that in there a couple of lines down and say, I'm going to get an increase whenever it is.
So a few people have said, doesn't the DB pension amount increase each year with inflation? Well, because we've removed inflation from all of this and we're just thinking in today's terms, then you just put the same amount down. It just makes it so much easier that we've removed inflation from this, because it's so hard to kind of wrap your head around, well, what would that be in 10 years time? And then it just gets a little bit too confusing. So the fact that we allow for inflation in the growth rate for how your investments are growing means that throughout the spreadsheet we can just use today's figures. So that just makes it so easy. It's like, well, I want to spend 40 grand this year and I want to spend 40 grand in 10 years time. I don't have to figure out how many pizzas I can buy in 10 years time with that same amount.
Exactly.
I think also a little bit of a hold your horses that we're coming through on other annual income. So people are asking about investment properties and money from there. People are asking about a few other bits. We're going to come on to that. It's coming.
We're going to do it now. Comment from Hillary on YouTube. Wow, this is an awesome spreadsheet. This will be so helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Hillary.
Yeah, so we'll just keep working through this.
One little thing, Catherine asked, what if you have multiple DB pensions? So if they're all coming in on the same age, they're all come at 55, you could just put DB pensions here. And maybe you get, I don't know, I'm making up the age because I know it's all different in different things. But say you had a 10 grand pension from one company and a 2 grand pension from another, and they're both coming on at 55, you could just put it in here and say 12,000. Or
If the 10K came first, you could actually put 10 for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, I get 10 for those 3 years, and then the next one comes online, so I'll just put 12 afterwards.
You could do that. I think it's better to actually do DB pension 2 and then put it in the next column along.
Okay. Yeah, either
Doesn't
works. So you can definitely do that. You can either put them in one column and sum them up and just have a bigger sum for later years, or you can have them in 2 separate lines. That works just as well.
How are you feeling?
I'm good. I'm good. Always a little bit trying to make sure everyone's okay in the comments and like looking after everyone, but we'll slowly work through this. So the next one we want to do is state pension. So this is Social Security in America, this is superannuation in New Zealand, or this is state pension in the UK. And basically it's a promised income at a certain date. So we will just scroll down to the date that people can get it. The James and Sarah are a British couple, so we're just going to put that version, but you put your own version in wherever you are. So we would just scroll down.
I'm just showing examples.
I know you are. I love it.
Right, stop. Okay, I've just showing you what the different terms will be in the different countries. So Sarah, we're assuming that the state pension age for her will be 68 and that she's got the full state pension, which currently is just under 12 grand a year. So I've just scrolled down to where Sarah turned 68 and put her amount in there.
And we would just drag it down because you'll get that until you die or expire. So we would just drag that down to the end and see it there. And then we can add James's one in the next column. James is a couple of years younger, so he doesn't get it until a couple of years later. Okay. But this is actually how you can reflect when that money comes in and see the impact on your investment. So Katie's just adding in James's Social Security, state pension, and all of that stuff. One quick question. Claudia on YouTube says, where would you put your workplace pension? Claudia, that comes under SIP or workplace pension. So that's under investments.
Yeah, so we've split this between 2 different elements of money coming in. So this section that we're working on now is annual income. So that's like monetary amounts that you're expecting or that you're promised. So things like any DB pensions or final salary pensions, or in the US they're just called pensions, your state pension, your work income that if you're working now, that money, any income, like if you're planning to get a job in 5 years time, you can put it in here. And that's the flexibility of this, of it coming online at different ages. So that's that versus things where it's like invested and then you live off the investments rather than it being a promised income. Does that make sense?
It did to me. I think you should ask them.
Does that make sense, everyone? Does that make sense? How are you doing out there? Does it make sense as to why we split those 2 elements out?
Okay, Rachel says yes. One person says yes. There's a few hearts coming on YouTube. Bex says, what happens if your pay increases below the rate of inflation? Bex, that is not good. And it actually means you're getting a real reduction, which does happen sometimes, but you might have to like reduce your income as you go.
So you could put this, that actually I'm getting paid less in real terms, as in after inflation. So it's just like any and every scenario with your income you can put in here.
Yeah. Okay,
so I'm just going to undo that because that is not Sarah and James's case.
Okay, quite a few people are getting it and coming along with us. Awesome, I love it.
Jennifer asked about accounting for salary sacrifice. That's coming when we look at what you're adding to your investments.
Exactly, contributions. Okay.
Right, so I'm just checking that I took out the fake DB pensions, and then we've added in their Social Security. Now these columns are not relevant for James and Sarah, but this is where you would put in, if you have rental properties that you are making a profit on, maybe you put it in here, maybe you're getting 3 grand a year from that and you expect it to stay about the same, and then you could drag that down. You might want to have different columns for, this is rental property 1, maybe you've got multiple properties and you want to put them in a different columns, just do that. You're welcome to add columns as well. Just always make sure that the sum is including those
extra columns.
And we've left you an other spare column in there. So this is just what income do you expect to have at what ages, what years, whether that's money that you're working for through a job, whether that's a side hustle, whether that's a part-time job you might have in retirement, whether that's rental property income that you have. This all goes in here.
Exactly. Rob says lump sums from DB pension. Yeah, you could add that in, the year you're going to get it and the amount you're going to get it. Future one-off inheritance. Yes, you could just scroll down and go, we think we'll get this at this age. We've never had inheritance, and I don't know if we'll ever get any, who knows? But you would just scroll down and go, I think they're going to last this long, and this is what we might get at this point. Okay, perfect. Petsy says, did you put gross for state pension? Petsy, we did, because at the moment it's kind of under your personal allowance. So it's kind of about the amount that you would get tax-free. And also, we're not really going to cover tax tonight because it's a complex situation and we all have different tax levels. So we're just going to stick to that, and we will let you work out your own taxes as you go forwards. That's the really important bit.
So I just removed that rental property profit from Sarah and James's here because that was just to show you if that's relevant to you. It's not relevant for them.
Now you can see their total income comes up there and their annual spending. So at the moment they are earning more than they should spend, which is fantastic. Quick question from Harry and Maria says, should we include our emergency fund? Harry and Maria, doesn't go in this spreadsheet. You don't really need it in this spreadsheet. No, so we just ignore it.
Just invested stuff.
Yeah, just invested stuff.
Which your emergency fund should definitely not be invested.
Okay, so we've got total income 62,400 between the two of them, and their annual spending is 40 grand. And you can see in the next column it says how your spending is covered. And it says spending is covered by income, not stocks. So they are earning enough that they can live off the income they've got coming in.
The way the spreadsheet works is that it assumes that any spending first is covered by income. So anything that you've got in these columns, anything from your job incomes, if you've got your state pension has kicked in at that point, if you've got rental property profit, it all assumes that it comes from that income first. Well, their income is more than their spending. So it's all coming from that.
Let's scroll down to where it's not, because we only made them work a certain amount of years.
So here we scroll down.
Here, they've stopped working, so they've not got any income. So all of their spending is then coming from their freedom fund. And that shows like the transition from working to non-working. Steve says this is brilliant, by the way.
Oh, thanks, Steve.
And Teresa says this spreadsheet is amazingly comprehensive. How long did it take Katie to design and develop it?
This time round, not quite as long. When we first did it 3 years ago, that was some argy-bargy. Horatio, Highland Horatio says, that's an interesting question. When do you no longer need your emergency fund? Do you invest it at that point as well?
No, we would say you would never invest your emergency fund because, like, in case of emergencies, and everyone has an emergencies, no matter what age you are, even like retired people have emergencies. Okay, so we're going to keep moving. And keep going. So we've got how is it covered by spending. We're going to move over to the next section, which is called contributions. And contributions are, if you're still working, this is where you add more money to your ISAs, SIPs, and other investments. Or if you're in America, 401ks, if you're in New Zealand, your Kiwi savers and your non-Kiwi savers. So you have all of that stuff. This is where you do it. And James and Sarah are still working, so they're earning more than they're spending, so they can invest the rest.
Yes, and you'll see that these columns have automatically updated. These titles here match what we had all the way at the beginning when we had investments. So if I were to, how do I get rid of this? If I were to go back to where we had investments and I change this to ABC, it will automatically pull through here, and you can see that it's the same. So it kind of tallies with what you have in the investment side. That's how it works.
Exactly. Okay. Now, this bit is where you add in your contributions. So James and Sarah have a gap of £22,400, which is just amazing. They've done very well. They've reduced their spending, they've increased their income, they've got a gap, and they're just going to invest that.
Which are just looking at the difference between these two numbers that I've highlighted here.
Exactly, exactly.
So how are they going to invest it, Alan?
How are they going to invest it? Well, this is actually one of the questions they're trying to answer is, do we need to put it in our ISAs in case we want to retire before we can get to our SIPs? Or should we put it all in our SIPs so that we get the tax back? Like, that's actually the question they are trying to answer. So let's model it as if they put it in their SIP to start with.
So they're each putting the same amount because they're both earning the same.
Exactly. So they each put the same amount. And this is where we can actually add the money back from the government. So if they invest it in a tax efficient way here, they would get the money back, which is very exciting. It will get them towards financial independence quicker. So you'll see Katie's put 11,200, and then we're actually going to turn this into a little formula that says it will get uprated by the government by the 25% back that they get. Okay.
I've just increased it by 25% because the tax they get back.
Exactly. And then we would drag that down for as long as they're working.
Where did we put them to in working?
I can't remember when they worked. We're going to check what age they gave up working.
This year, 2037.
2037.
We've actually, there's a thing in Excel where you can freeze parts of the worksheet. So you can see as I'm scrolling around that these columns never disappear and these rows never disappear. And that's just because I've frozen those bits of the spreadsheet. So it's easier to navigate around. If you don't like that, by all means, get rid of that. You could just go to view and freeze panes, and then you can just unfreeze the panes.
We find it quite useful to have the titles still at the top so that we can see where we are when we're going through.
So they are going down to 2037.
So this is how you do it. And if you want to up your contributions or downgrade your contributions, this is where you would do it. And let's say if you sold a house, you would put it in income, and then you would go, I'm contributing that to my SIP and to my ISA, and that's how you would lay out extra contributions.
People are saying, what about employer contributions? That is an excellent point. That is an excellent point. We should put in that they're getting maybe their employer giving them 4% of their salary. I know this is after tax, but just pretend it isn't. So I've just done a very simple formula here. I've said they're getting 4% of their income plus they're investing their gap in their SIP.
So this is where you would include all contributions. So everything you're getting from your employer, tax back from the government, your own contributions, this is all of the money you are investing for your future. Okay. And Jacob says, is it yearly? Yes, this is all a yearly thing.
That's a good shout. We didn't actually say that explicitly, did we? This is each year as you go down the spreadsheet.
DP on YouTube says, didn't get the upgrading. DP, that's because I used the wrong word. It's my fault. Basically, when you contribute to a SIP, you get the tax back from the government. So that's what we increased by it again, so that you could get the tax back from the government. Harry and Maria says, wow, it's very cool watching Katie live edit this spreadsheet. So effortless and natural. Yeah, she's practiced for a while and she is very good. If you don't catch something, we can definitely do it again, or you can watch it on catch up and we can go through it all.
Just so you know, I was not born with these skills.
What?
I know. Although I think I do like sums, so it probably came from a young age, but this just comes from practice. I spent a lot of my life playing with spreadsheets, so it's a learned skill.
Which means for you that you can learn it as well if you would like to. So we'll just work through it and we'll work through it together. Okay, so we've got they're contributing their money to their SIPs.
Is that all that's all they're doing?
That's all they're doing. They've used it up.
Well, not all they're doing that, like, as it's a bad thing. They're doing plenty.
I know.
Okay.
Mark says, I spend most of my time trying to avoid spreadsheets.
Mark.
They can be very useful for planning your personal finances, which we absolutely love. Zodiac says, how would you add the government bonus for a LISA? So let's say we have
Yes,
your LISA.
let's do that. So let's pretend that this column ABC is for your LISA. The government gives you, for every £100 you put in, they give you £25. So if you're planning to use the whole LISA allowance of £4,000, then you can just type equals 4,000 times 1.25 to allow for the fact of that extra 25%, and that's the £5,000. If you only were putting in 2,000, then you just do 2,000 times 1.25.
Or if you're arcane like Alan, you would go, I'm getting £1,000 back, I'm just going to write £5,000 in there.
You can just
wouldn't even use a formula.
Yeah, you can just type it in. Whatever's easiest for you. I like to do things like that because it helps me to know where those numbers came from. And you could add in a little note that says new note or new comment that says this is 4K for my contribution plus the gov bonus of 1K. I like to write little notes to future me to remind me why I put these figures in. And you might want to do this as you work around the spreadsheet, because you'll come back to this in a few months' time and go, what on earth? What was I thinking? And these little notes really help.
Exactly. Anna says she disagrees. Katie was playing with Excel instead of soft toys at age 2.
Does Anna know? How did Anna know? Do we know each other, Anna?
Okay. Yeah, people love the fact you write notes to yourself. It makes it so much easier to understand it. So look, this is contributions. Basically, this section is where you put any money you're investing for your freedom fund. And people are like, how would a house sale work? Let's say you sold a house sale. You could mark it in income, and then you could put it in contributions, and you would just put the amounts that you would into, like, is it going into a SIP, an ISA, like where, or a general account, and you would just add it to the column at the date you're planning to sell it.
Should we show that? Or we'll do that in the example that we're coming
We'll do that in the example. We've got our final example of the night, which we're hoping to get to, is about house sales. So yeah, we are going to do that as well. Okay, cool.
Monique's asking about, she's got USA pension, so saying, do I add the total contributions, the amount I can withdraw, like how does it work? Monique, if it's an income that you are promised from a certain age, you would just come over to this annual income stuff. I've just scrolled back over to the left side of the spreadsheet, and you could put here pension and whatever age it kicks in. If it's at age 60, you go, okay, when I get to 60, I am promised 3,000, I don't know, whatever it is, and then just
drag it down.
Whoops, I moved it instead of dragged it. Then just drag that down.
The danger of having a big cursor.
I've got a massive cursor, no one can see it. And I'm not showing off about the size of my cursor, but I did what people said made my cursor big, and now it still looks tiny. There you go. So that's how you do that, Monique. If it's a promised amount you're going to get, put it in this annual income thing. If it's something that's invested and it's just the amount that it is, and then it's up to you to manage living off it, then that goes in these investments in the stock market bit. Exactly. So things like your 401k in the States and things like that.
Exactly. Okay, delete that out of our spreadsheet because they don't have that mentioned. Poor old James and Sarah are not getting that money. That's Monique's money.
So this, just to recap then, what we've done here is we've said, okay, James and Sarah are working away. They've got a gap, pretty sizable, healthy gap. Good for them. Let's put in where that gap's being used. And then we have this little thing over on the right that says, first of all, it sums up their total contributions. You'll notice there's no blue things here for you to use. The spreadsheet automatically does that. And then it says, okay, they've got a gap, which is their income minus spending of 22,400. How come their contributions are 30,496? And it just warns you, it says your contributions are bigger than your gap, check your figures. Well, we're okay with that because we've added in pension, employer contributions to their pensions, the tax they're getting back on their pensions, on their SIPs. So you could actually just write yourself a little note and say, like, Katie notes. It'd be weird if this was Sarah and James' spreadsheet and I was writing in the notes. Maybe it's Sarah's notes, but we say, I'm okay with this because of tax relief and employer contribution, something like that. And then again, that's a little note to future you saying, oh, the spreadsheet's warned me. How come I'm putting in more than my gap? I'm okay because of that.
So what else could it warn you? Is there, if we scroll down, does it have a different warning when they
Let's
finish work?
see what happens. But yes, there are different warnings that come up. Why is that one so much lower? Anyway, we'll come back to that. This one says, let me scroll over. It says, your spending is more than your income. Some or all of your spending is covered by your freedom fund. Well, that's because their gap is actually negative. And you're like, scary. Well, actually, no, it's okay. That's the point that they're hoping to be retiring. So they don't have any income. So their spending is more than their income. So it just warns you that the spreadsheet then assumes that the difference, the amount you need to live off, comes from your freedom fund, from those investments at the far left of the spreadsheet.
Exactly. AG and Caroline both spotted that. I hope we've explained that one. The little check at the end is just to go, have you forgot to invest your money?
Yeah.
Make sure you invest it in the spreadsheet so it checks that.
So let's show you what happens. I've deleted those contributions that they've made, and it goes, hang on, you haven't made any contributions. You have a gap you could invest. And actually you might put here, I'm going on holiday. Whatever it is.
Blow it all. It should be spending.
I'm going to spend, that's true.
It should be spending if you're doing that.
That's true. Or it's spending that you're doing in future years, money you're putting aside.
Saving future.
But look, this check column is not the be all and end all. If it's okay to leave it as something that I'll show you. So if this is exactly equal to your gap, so what was that, 11,200 and 11,200, it says all of your gap is added to your investments, and that's kind of like a tick. But what we're trying to say is it doesn't matter if you don't get that result in that check. It's just saying, hang on, have you thought about this? Hang on, make sure that you're aware of that.
Exactly. Monique says, I missed this. Do we place DB pension on the year 65 line? Monique, it depends on what year you get it. So your DB pension, your pension, whatever it is, it's what year you get it. And then you scroll down to the year you're going to get it and stick it there, because it will be different for absolutely everyone. Okay.
I'm going to reverse what I just did. Okay.
Perfect. Okay.
Have we done it?
I think we've done the setup. I think we've done the setup. Fiona says, does it take the gap pounds out of the total stock balance? If you don't have enough income to cover your spending, it takes it out of your stocks.
And specifically, it takes it out of this first column. That's why we got you to put these in order of when you can access them. And for simplicity, it only ever takes money out of that column, whether it exhausts it or not. So if this, I'm going to show you. I've gone to the inputs tab. I'm going to put a very high number just to show you what happens. If you put this as 200,000 spending a year.
That's a lot of spending.
That's a lot of spending.
It'll be a good year.
It goes negative here because you're taking out, Sarah and James have, what do they have? 235 grand. So if they're spending 200 of that, even with growth, it's going to go negative. But then the check is to say, well, okay, that one's gone negative, but can I get to the next one at the age at which I'm able to get it? So for Sarah, let's say her SIP age is 58. Then you would just check and be like, can I get to the next one along and be okay across the two?
Let's actually do the example. So they're spending back. So we're going to actually show you the example now. So this is James and Sarah's figures. You've been through it. You've been adding all your figures, hopefully, whilst we've been doing it. This is their figures. And we are going to scroll. Beverly says we're both remarkable. Thank you, Beverly. We're slowly working through it. And we'll help everyone we can. Let's scroll down for the ISA and GIAs. And you'll actually see they go negative at 64 and 62. So that's when they run out of money in their ISAs and their general investment accounts. But at 64 and 62, they can get to their workplace pensions. So they can get to those next accounts at that point and start to live off the next column. And this is kind of how you see, oh, this column is exhausted. Are these ones available by that date.
And look, if your spreadsheet whiz and you want to make it so that it moves the spending along from the next column, be our guest. We just wanted to keep this as simple as possible for a bunch of different countries around the world.
Exactly. And then if we scroll over, the other bit that you can see is the total stocks and shares. So theirs, by this point, have grown to 1.5 million, and they could actually withdraw 61,000 based on the 4% rule, which is what they put in the inputs tab. So they only need 40 grand a year to live off.
Yeah.
So they're good.
Yeah, so you could actually scroll up and say, okay, what I'm doing is I'm looking in this column and seeing where do I get to the point that their spending is covered, which is the 40 grand. Actually here, so I've just looked at the first point at which this column goes above 40, and it's here when Sarah's 56 and James is 54. And then we can check, do we still have any money left to live off? Yes. And you can start to see like what the numbers might look like. And again, this is just assuming linear growth. There's none of this market volatility and sequence of returns risks and things, just for simplicity in this spreadsheet.
Awesome. Heather says, I've added 100 grand to my investments under the spare column in 10 years' time, but it's made no difference to my gap. It still says spending more than income in check for that year. So that's two separate bits. The check you've got at the end checks your contributions against your spending. The investments like actually cover your spending.
I think Heather's saying that the fact that she's put so much in her contributions, how is it saying that the gap doesn't cover it? Have I misunderstood?
Yes.
Okay, I'll let you carry on.
That's okay. I think I handled it.
Apologise.
I think I did, but Heather can tell me in the chat whether I had it. Judith said hello, Judith said it had the same as Heather. Oh,
it's okay.
Our screen's gone off and it's come back.
Okay. Oh, Heather said Katie is correct.
Oh, there you go. Well, Katie knows more than I do.
So let's try and reproduce what Heather's saying. So she's saying she's put 100 grand in her spare thing here coming up. So her total.
She said she's added to investments.
Sorry, excuse me. So she's saying, okay.
Which actually we don't know. Heather, when you said I've added it to my investments.
Yeah, I think
yes,
so. Yeah.
Big contributions. Yeah.
So let's put in 100,000. And she's saying, it's still saying, oh yeah, it's because if you're living off your investments, your gap is zero, is negative, sorry. So because of the logic of how it does it, it says if your gap's negative, then it assumes you're living off some of your freedom fund. The way around that is you could say, well, where did that 100 grand come from? You could add that into the income column in the same year. Where did I put that? So you said, oh, I got 100 grand, but I'd put it straight into investments. So they kind of cancel each other out.
And there you go. Yay! Heather's there. Got it. Yep. Awesome. Because that's the bit about income and contributions. And the best way to do it is if you get income, like you sell a house, you've got some inheritance or something like that, stick it in the income tab and then put it in the contributions as well, and it just shows between them how they work. Okay, excellent.
So we're going to do a little bit of playing with Sarah and James' scenarios, right? Because the whole point of doing this is to set up this base case and then to say, what could we play with? What could we play with income, with spending, with contributions to change their outcomes, to change what age they might be able to stop working, to change what age they could spend more if they wanted to, and just play with that.
Exactly. So let's have a look at it, shall we?
Yes.
So if we go over here and have a look at this, so we actually were looking at what point they could retire with their spending. So we went down the amount you could withdraw and we found out, oh, look, they could retire a year earlier than they were thinking based on the fact they'll hit their target the year before. So you could just delete off their income and go like, oh, we're just going to retire a year early.
Oh, just 1 year.
Yeah, okay, just 1 year. So they've retired a year earlier, they've ditched their income, and then you can see whether they run out. We also have the quick check in the inputs and outputs.
So I'm just going back to this tab that says inputs and quick look outputs. It's the second tab along at the bottom here, and we can see when it says that their first batch of investments runs out, and I can just change these names to Sarah and James. And so you can see that it's when Sarah's 63 and James is 61, and you're like, ooh, that's like, it's gone, but like they can get to their SIP, their next column along at that point. So we're okay. So I'll show you in the spreadsheet. So at age 63 and 61, oh, it's gone negative, but it's okay because we're able to get to Sarah's SIP at that point. Actually, both of their SIPs have come online by that point.
Exactly. Quick question from Steve says, an assumed growth of 10% seems very high for every year. Steve, the stock market's been growing by 10% a year for 100 years. And that's what it is. Everyone, all the IFAs say it's lower, but that's pretty much what it is. And since we've started investing, we've seen 13% growth on our funds. So 10% is not a very high figure at all. It's actually what it does on average over the long term.
And in this spreadsheet, we have allowed for inflation as well. So the defaults that we've put in here are 10% growth, 3% inflation. It takes the inflation from the stock market growth and says, what's the real stock market growth? Real just means after you've allowed for inflation. So these figures are growing by 7% in the playground tab. By all means, have a play with these figures and see what difference it makes on your outcome.
Exactly. Right, let's go back to the playground and those bits. And then James and Sarah are really excited about this. They're like, well, okay, we can actually retire at 60s. That's awesome. I wonder what else we could do. And there's a concept that we were going to talk to people about CoastFI.
Yeah, shall I quit out of this so that we can...
So let's tell you about the idea of CoastFI. CoastFI is where you have built up money in your investment pots, and then you take your foot off the gas and stop earning as much and allow your investments to grow in the background. So an example of that would be Sarah and James have like built up a bit in their ISAs and SIPs, and then they go part-time in their jobs. And they go, will my investments grow to how much I need to retire? And I can just work part-time, cover my expenses, and I don't need to like try as hard each week. And the spreadsheet will help you answer that question. Anything to add on CoastFI?
I don't think so, Anna. Ask the people.
Ask the people. People. Mark, Wes and Kim, Kathleen, Sarah, everyone there. Does it make sense? Did you get the idea of CoastFI? Did my words make sense? Please give me a reaction on YouTube. Wendy, Dawn, Elisa, Simon, Fireman69. Did my comments make sense? Okay, Anne says, not quite sure I got it. I didn't quite do it right. Few people are saying they got it. Would you like to have a go at CoastFI?
So FI stands for FI, Financial Independence. The idea is that if you've been investing for a while and you've got your freedom fund, it's grown to a certain amount. Maybe you just want to earn enough to cover your living expenses for the next few years. In the meanwhile, your freedom fund is growing in the background. And then you're like, well, has it grown to enough that I need it to grow to that then I can live off it? So the idea is that you could just cover your expenses or a little bit more. You don't need to invest anymore. In the background is my freedom fund kind of coasting me along to the point where I can get to my investments and not have to work if I don't want to.
Which Emily says, can you show us in the spreadsheet? Yes, that's exactly what we're going to do now. So let's go to the spreadsheet and show you how you can do it. And we'll do the actual test on that.
Anna says, why would you just cover your expenses rather than earn or stop working altogether?
Well, if you stop earning altogether and you don't have enough in your freedom fund, you don't have any money to live off. And then you won't be able to buy pizza and everyone's very sad. So that's the reason why you wouldn't do it. But you might want to like slow down your work and allow compounding to do the heavy lifting for you. So let's do the spreadsheet example to actually show people this. So we're going to do this for James and Sarah and see if they can do this. So
I'm just going to zoom out a little bit because it makes it easier to navigate around the spreadsheet. Hopefully you can still see what we're doing.
Okay, let's go across to their income because that's where we're going to model going part-time. So this is their income. And let's say they just work for 2 more years full-time and then they want to go part-time afterwards. Now, I did the sums and I worked out if they go part-time, their take-home pay reduces massively, but it just about covers their spending, which they're spending 40K a year, which is incredible. So their part-time pay for 3 days a week goes down to 20 grand a year.
And that's what I really like about this tool, is that you can change this to whatever you want. Maybe this year in the future, maybe they go back full-time and I can change it to the full-time figure. Like, you can change these to whatever you want and have those multiple different columns for different job incomes. Like if you have 2 jobs, have a different column for different job, and you'd be like, could I stop one and not the other?
Which, building on that, LJ in YouTube says the spreadsheet seems to work on a consistent spend from retirement. Can you adjust it with more in early years than less? Yes, you can.
So you can just change that column. So you just come to here, annual spending, put this whatever you want. If you put this at 30,000, I'm just going to color it in to show that I've changed that cell. In this one, maybe you're going to have a blowout year and spend 100,000. I don't know. You can change it to whatever you want.
You get your Porsche, you do your car, whatever you want, but you would change those different cells there. So it's fully customizable for when you're going to upgrade the kitchen, buy a car, or do whatever you want with your spending. You just need to go through and like predict at different places what are you going to spend. So if you undo those couple,
are we still keeping
we're still keeping the birthday. We're not ditching the birthday.
Sarah's 50th. Remember, we said that they're going to spend 50 grand that year because they're going to have a big celebration for her birthday.
So if we go back to their spending, we've reduced their spending, which they've now got
reduced their income.
Sorry, reduced their income, which shows their total income there. But they can't contribute as much to their pensions.
Yeah.
Now they've got lower things. So actually, they're spending everything they earn, so they can't contribute.
Well, apart from, we could put the employer's contribution here.
We could put the employer's contribution.
So I'm just going to put that they're getting 4% of what they are earning. This is just a guesstimate. So I just copied it across for James and copied that down for however long they're working.
Exactly. Perfect. Okay. So, and actually, they've taken 10 grand out from their stocks to cover Sarah's birthday that year.
Should we say
because they're not earning enough?
Should we say that they'll do a bit of extra work to cover that?
Yeah, they'll do some extra work to cover that. Maybe, yeah, James will do the extra work to cover it.
Good old James.
Birthday. You know, we've got to be careful. Helen says in the chat, can I be Sarah? Yeah, absolutely.
Good old Sarah.
Everyone should be Sarah.
I noticed James hasn't got a big bump in his 50th year, has he?
No, we're ignoring his birthday. Okay. Move on.
Okay.
So we've updated all those figures. We've updated their contributions and how much they're contributing and what they're doing. Now we have to see, do they actually run out of money? Can they make it?
So we do that in the playground tab or the outputs tab?
I think we should have a look at the outputs first and then come back to the playground. So the quick outputs says their first batch of investments runs out at 63 and 61, which that's okay because they can get to their second batch, which is their SIPs by that age. And it says they never run out of money.
That's really good.
Which, like, that's shocking. So let's go and actually see what happened in the figures, because that's always the important bit, what actually happened.
So they worked full-time for these first 2 years, and then they've gone part-time for another, how many years is that? 9 years? Something like that?
Yeah, 9 years. So they're retiring at 56 and 54.
10 years. 10 years. So actually you can see that their SIPs and their bits are growing in the background. They run out of what they've got in their ISA at ages 63 and 61, but they have access to their SIPs at that point, so that's fine.
But they're not doing well on the 4% rule. So they never actually got to the amount that they can live off for the 4% rule. So they're withdrawing more than 4%. So one way to test it is go, what if we up the withdrawal rate to 5% to see how much they would be taking out? So Katie will just stick 5 in there. Then we'll go back to the playground, and they still never quite hit it. So their actual withdrawal rate is like 5.5%, which is quite risky.
Even though Bill Bengen said you could do 5.5, depends on the scenarios, doesn't it?
Exactly. It depends on the scenarios. It depends on the scenarios. And then you can now see this is how you start to play around going, when could we go part-time? How much will we have? What if we did this? What if we did that? And all the different scenarios. So I suggest we kind of ditch James and Sarah because we've spoken about them a lot.
You spent a long time with those two, and I'm a bit sad to leave them behind.
Oh, James and Sarah, they're lovely. We can change their life with that spreadsheet. So tell us what you thought of the James and Sarah example. Tell us what you think of your spreadsheet. Tell us what's going on. DP says, Alan, I didn't get the final bit. DP, using the withdrawal rate bit, you can check to see, does that withdrawal rate give you enough for your spending? That's all we were doing. Like on a 5% withdrawal, oh, we can't even get enough at a 5% rate to get the amount we need to live off. So probably we need to earn a little bit more to be able to retire.
We've had a point from Mark. Mark says, could you please mention the idea that if you do go part-time and you're working towards having a DB, defined benefit pension, that can have a big impact on the amount that you're entitled to when you do collect your pension.
Exactly.
To say that. So
and it's very important. Yeah, that is a fantastic one. And it's less so on your DC pension, but it will reduce your contributions, which you can model in the spreadsheet.
Yes, this looks at the numbers. Obviously, there's going to be ins and outs and kind of nuances for how different rules work. And of course, think about that in aggregate when you do it. Okay, if I go part-time, what impact does that have on my entitlements, on how it works with my employer? So it's very important to have that holistic view and think about the impact broader than these numbers of what it would do for your finances.
Exactly. And now we wanted to do a demo of, should I keep my DB pension or not?
Yes.
Because that is a question we get so regularly. And we had a live example. A lady came to us and said, I have a small defined benefit pension from my time working at the BBC. Should I cash it out and move it to a DC pension, or should I leave it? Doesn't seem very much. What should I do with it? And this tool will help you to look at the numbers for that.
So, Angela, she's 37 years old. She worked for the BBC for a few years in her 20s. So she has a small pension with them. She's promised just under £1,800 a year from the age of 65. So she's like, well, that's not very much. Should I transfer it, control it myself, put it in my self-invested personal pension? What should I do? Well, this is something we can use the spreadsheet to answer the question. And it's at this point that people say, get rid of a DB pension? What? Aren't they gold dust? What should I? This is outrageous, Donegans. How can you speak this way? Some DB pensions are amazing. They come with all these benefits, particularly the ones from back in the day. Some, especially if you only promised a smaller amount because you only worked there for a few years, maybe not. We're just saying, look at them, understand the benefits that come with them. They will continue to pay a spouse or a dependent, perhaps. There are benefits beyond just the numbers. So it will depend on your scheme, it depend on your circumstances. We are just saying, do not automatically assume that it's amazing. Exactly. Is that fair?
No, it's exactly fair, because you need to do the maths. Not all defined benefit pensions are great. Some are fabulous, some are not. Let's not judge them all with the same message. Let's do the maths and understand every single one. And for those of you asking questions like, can you do the inheritance bits and the stock market bits and the other stuff? We have a third example, which we're going to do, because this one's a quick example. So we'll do a third example, which shows what if I sold my house and moved it to investments? What if I downsized? We have another like lifestyle choices section that's coming next. Now,
so
how do we model this out with a DB pension?
Well, the first thing that Angela did was, it took some tenacity and some back and forth, but she asked for the transfer value, meaning if she opts out of this scheme, takes the money out, puts it into her own self-invested side, how much would she get? So after a lot of emailing back and forth, they said the transfer value was 29,000. So she's saying, well, Should I keep this promise of having £1,700 from when I get 65, or take the 29 grand, invest it myself? What should I do?
Would I be better off investing it myself and cashing out, or would I be better off leaving it? And that is something we can absolutely model with the spreadsheet. So Katie's going to launch a new spreadsheet. Someone said in the chat, Alan, do you have a Lego model in your hands? Yes, it distracts me occasionally. I have a fantastic 4 Lego model in my hands. There you go. So the spreadsheet.
I'm working on it.
Katie's working on it. We're just going to share the screen. I don't think her overly large pointer is actually helping Katie.
Help doesn't help anyone.
Doesn't help anyone.
So this is just a blank version of what we had that we've been working with. And Angela has different spending and incomes. But actually, for the purposes of this, it doesn't matter what any of that is. We literally just want to see what the difference is between having that DB pension income after age 65 and the SIP. So I'm not going to put in her income, her spending. It's kind of irrelevant for these purposes. Yes, it's part of the full picture, and that won't change between scenario A and scenario B.
And sometimes it's easier to compare things in isolation. So sometimes it's just to go, okay, the only thing I'm comparing is A and B. I'm just going to strip everything else and do this. So you can start with a new spreadsheet and just have a very simple version.
So I've just typed in the year 2025, Angela's name there, and she's 37, and it just auto-populates the age. So option 1 is stay with the DB pension. So I'm scrolling over here. There's a column here for DB pension, BBC pension for Angela. She can get to it at 65. I'm going to scroll down, find when she's 65, put in here, it was 1777. Now, for the purposes of this, we're assuming that it's inflation adjusted. Some schemes are, some schemes aren't. This one we're saying is. So because this is all in today's figures, we're just putting that she gets that same amount forevermore.
Which that is the exact model of what she would get from the BBC pension. You get that amount inflation adjusted for life. Tick.
Then option 2 is, what if she had that money now and put it in her SIP? So the transfer value they gave her was 29,000. So put that in there. I've actually put both in, even though it's either or, just to see the difference between the two things, which will become clear as we go. So it's assumed that it's growing by the assumptions that we had in that inputs tab, which was 10% growth and 3% inflation. So overall a 7% growth. And then we can scroll down and we can see, okay, what might that grow to? Like, this is not what will actually happen because volatility and all these things, but if it were to grow by 7% a year over, she's got nearly 3 decades before she can get to this money. Age 65, okay, that might have grown to about 200 grand. If she wants to live off 4% of that, that's just under 8,000 that she'd be able to withdraw. 4% of this 192 figure is 7,700, this number here. And then you think, well, the pension, they were going to promise her £1,700, £1,800 a year. We reckon we might be able to get just under 8.
So are you going to stick with your DB pension, Katie, or are you going to cash in and invest it?
Look, I'm not giving anyone any advice because I can't do that. I wouldn't tell anyone what to do. I would say make your own decisions. If this was me, if I was Angela, I would be taking that 29 grand and investing it myself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, this is highly dependent on what we have on the assumptions. And some people are like, well, is 10% realistic? Is that going to keep going? Well, let's go and change some of the assumptions and see the impact. So what if it was only 8% and 3% inflation? I've just come to this tab and changed the figures here. Okay, let's go back to the playground. Well, now it's 4.5 grand that she would have. I've just looked at this same line. Because it grew by less, it's now only 114. She can get 4.5.
So even at a real growth rate of 5%, she's still like 2.5, 3 times better off investing it herself.
Yes.
And that's how you look at the decisions and get to know the maths and go, do we want to do this? Do we want to do that? I love Charlie's message on YouTube. Such a powerful and empowering tool. It just helps you to see things far easier and far quicker.
So look, I've gone even more extremely conservative, saying that after inflation, the stock market's only going to grow by 2% a year for the next 30 years.
Which is just not true, but we're testing.
So look, it's about same now. She would get $2,000 if it were to grow by that amount from her defined contribution pension, her SIP, and the same 1,800 from her BBC pension. So what we're just doing is comparing the numbers at that point. And look, of course, this is not what's going to actually happen. This is just your way of thinking about it, being like, okay, do I take this guaranteed payment of £1,800 in 3 decades' time, or do I take this SIP money now so that I can invest it myself? And hopefully it grows to more than I could live off with that. If you're much closer to the age of being able to get that, of course, that factors in terms of what it might grow to between now and then.
Exactly. So there you go. There's the example. Tell us what you think. Tell us your thoughts. We would love to know, have you been able to manage your spreadsheets? Have you been able to do it? JM says she's whacked and off to bed. I can understand that. It's been a busy session with a lot going on. It's really fascinating. Yeah, Alistair says also she would have the flexibility of taking it earlier than DBH, yeah, which is really, really interesting. And the difference in those numbers is crazy.
And look, of course, remember there are like benefits of having a DB pension beyond the money, that like the survivor pension, maybe there's some death benefits as well. So just looking at it in aggregate is extremely important. You need to understand the rules and what happens with yours.
Yeah, absolutely. And we found it quite interesting. We actually asked Angela these questions and she went off and went, well, there's no real benefits to me of that, so I wouldn't do it. Jane says, are there fees involved in transferring a DB pension? Yes, I think it's over 32,000 you have to have an IFA do it, because they don't trust you to do it yourself or know that you can do the sums, because the spreadsheet, like creating a spreadsheet like this, your average person would never do it. So they don't actually believe anyone could understand the sums themselves. So you have to have an IFA, and you could actually model it out and work out whether it's worth paying those fees and moving it or not. You could actually say it cost me this and my actual encashment value is this, and you could model it all out. Excellent. Okay, Justine says, but are you allowed to reinvest it? My former employer scheme asked that I guarantee I wouldn't take the lump sum and reinvest it somewhere else. Justine, I've never heard of them like saying you have to spend it.
I think we're talking about two different things here. Justine's talking about lump sum, which is an amount that you can get from when you come to live off your pension, versus saying, I don't want to be a part of this scheme and moving it somewhere else. I think we're talking at cross purposes, but perhaps Justine can help me.
Exactly. Okay. I'm wondering, we're going to do a live debate in front of you all, so just excuse us for a second. Should we do the final example? Well, I guess we should ask people.
Ask the audience.
We had one final example.
Democracy.
We know it's 90 minutes already, and we know we've given you a lot. And we're like, well, like, are we going to like destroy everyone, or are they all going to survive? Elizabeth says no. Jay says yes.
Well, you did say, are we going to destroy everyone? She might be saying no to that.
Oh, okay. We don't know. Please say yes if you want us to do the final example.
And look, if you're watching this live and you've had enough, please come back and watch it on catch up.
Yeah. Okay, like a few people. Jane says we want it.
The people have spoken, Alan. Can you imagine this torrent of like, yes, please?
Peter and Hat says,
Rabbies are like, get cracking, stop jabbering on.
Stop jabbering and doing
what they want.
Okay.
Okay, this is going to be
if you want to escape now, go and rest, and we will do the final example, which is Gilberto. And Gilberto is looking at his finances going, can I ever retire? Will I ever retire? I've got my house, I've paid off my house, but is that good enough? Like, what can I actually do here? So we're going to model out Gilberto's situation, work out whether he can retire, work out his situation with his house and all that stuff. So Katie's adding Gilberto. Gilberto is 55 years old currently. He has 20 grand in his ISA, 110 grand in his SIP. That's what he has. His home is worth £500,000. And he has paid it off. So he's very proud of that. But having come on Rebel Finance School, he had a moment of like, should I really have focused on paying it off or not? But he is where he is.
And so I've just whizzed through and put those figures in. Hopefully by now, having done those few examples, you're kind of up to speed with how and why we did that.
Perfect. So that's what he's added in. Now,
Spending, income.
His annual spending is 30 grand a year.
Oh, shall we go and put that in the inputs tab?
We'll
So I'm
put
just
that in the inputs
going back
tab.
to the inputs tab. This is a brand new spreadsheet that I've got. So we've got the defaults back here, which we had just changed in the previous example. This is brand new, fresh one. What was it? Sorry.
He's spending 30 grand a year, Gilberto, on his own. He lives on his own. He's paid off his mortgage, so his bills aren't too much. He's doing good. Sika says, I'm like Gilberto, I've paid off the mortgage. Lots of people have paid off the mortgage. And then you go, well, do I have enough to live off outside the mortgage? Which is the question Gilberto is asking, is can I still survive on this? So we've got Gilberto's income. He's 55. He wants to retire at some stage. He's currently earning 40 grand a year.
After tax?
No, after tax, that would be 31,200.
And is he going to work till he's what, 68 when he get his pension?
Going to see if he can retire, 68.
So I'm just dragging that down. I took the bottom right-hand corner of that cell and drag it down to 68.
Awesome. So there he's got his income. So he's earning just like £1,200 more than he spends, which is not a huge gap, but he's got a positive gap, which is excellent. So what's he going to do with the gap?
Should we put in his state pension?
No, you can't. Oh, should we? I thought you meant we put his gap in his state pension.
No, sorry. I was coming back to a previous point about.
Yes, let's enter his state pension, then we'll figure out where his gap goes.
Look, we just assume that Gilberto has the full state pension. You're going to need to check what you're entitled to and at what age. Actually, Gilberto, we're going to assume it's 68 for Gilberto. It actually might be a bit younger because he's 55 currently. You will need to check what you're entitled to and at what age. This is the Social Security figure if you're in the US and the
superannuation if you're in New Zealand. So you would add that in there. So we've got his state pension for Gilberto is in.
And I'm actually just going to delete these because they are not relevant to Gilberto.
Yeah, he doesn't have any of those, but he could start a side hustle if he wanted to, but he's not going to. And so there we go. He's got his state pension. We've got his income. Now, where does his gap go, Katie?
So he's got this £1,200 gap, which he's still working. So he's going to have some
employer
contributions. Shall we say his employer contribution is very generous. Let's say he gets 8%.
Can we say he gets 4%?
All right, 4% of.
We don't want to make him too well off.
Of his, what I'm just doing is I'm saying that he's getting 4% of his income. I've just typed in equals 4% times, and then pointing to this cell here, which has his income in it, which actually.
It would be 4% of his full income, but like you can model that out perfectly on your own time. Okay.
Then he's earning down to about there, isn't he? So we've just added that he's getting those contributions in. And
does he get his 25%? Oh no, because it's all done through the employer.
Does he get his 25%? Well, he'd be putting something in as well. Let's just say that he's putting 4% of his salary. It allows for tax relief. It allows for employer contributions. That's how much he's getting.
Okay, cool.
Do you want me to up it?
No, it's okay. Let's see what happens. Then the question is, can he actually retire or not by 68? Will he have enough to retire by 68? And some of these figures are a little bit fudged because we're going a little bit fast through it, but you will be way more accurate with your own figures, way more accurate. Okay.
Because we want to get to the point that we're thinking about the property and what does he do. So we want to get to that point rather than lingering too long on being super precise. That's one thing that we've got to say, Alan, is like
precision is not required.
Precision is not required. Yes, you're going to want to refine it more and more, but when we're thinking at these high level things, getting something quick and dirty often is super helpful. And then of course come down a level of detail and be like, oh, actually, what about tax? Oh, actually, what about I get this from my employer and that from my employer?
Yes. Okay, should we have a quick look at the inputs and outputs quick outputs tab? So the quick outputs tab shows that he runs out of his first investment batch at 73, which is after he can get to his SIP, so that's all good. And it shows he never runs out of money, which is excellent. But let's actually have a look at the figures and see what happens here.
Oh, it's gone quite small. Oh no, here we go.
Zooming in.
It's gone funny. So
Scroll. Oh,
it's gone funny.
scroll across.
I'm going to go back to the other tab and go back and see. Hopefully it will work. Dun, dun, dun.
Yay!
So this is looking at Gilberto's investments. We assumed that he's working till he's 68. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller to see the total amount.
And we're scrolling down, having a look, and you can see he goes negative at 73 from his first bit, but he does have his second pot. But is his second pot actually covering how much he needs to live off, which I guess is the other question. No. Let's actually have a look at 68. So at 68, his pot would allow him £13,000 to live off. He's got a state pension to add in there, which takes him to 25, but he's living off 30.
Yes.
So technically, Gilberto's screwed.
A little bit harsh. I thought he's done quite well.
He's not. He doesn't really have enough to live off, and that's because all of his money is tied up in the house he lives in. So Gilberto says, well, okay, how about if I downsize? So how would you model downsizing in the spreadsheet? So he's going to sell his bigger house and then buy a smaller house and invest the difference.
Are you asking the people or are you asking me?
I was asking you, but we'll ask the people as well. How do you model downsizing in the spreadsheet, everyone? What would you do? How would you downsize in the spreadsheet? Tell us what you would do. And that says, I'm going to sell my flat and move in with Gilberto. I love it. Gilberto is available for that. Okay. Lindsay says, as it's a lump sum. Judith says, put it in as a lump sum. Abs does like income. Show the lump sum from a sale as an investment, says Horatio from the Highlands. So we have his income from the sale.
Yeah.
So he's got a £500,000 house. He sells that, downsizes to a house that is
400 grand.
Okay.
So he's released 100,000. How did we work?
Equity.
In equity. So he's paid off his house in full. It's worth 500,000. He's sold it, bought a new house. So for 400,000, so he has got 100,000 left over. Of course, there'll be some like selling costs and things. There wouldn't be any tax because this is his home that he lives in. Estate agent, realtor fees and things. But let's just assume none of that and he gets 100,000.
Then we would scroll across. So we've put it as income, just like Al Hanley says. And then we go to the investment section and we invest it as well. So he's just going to stick it in his ISAs and his general investment account for now.
All of it?
Yep, all of it. We could put some of it in the SIP.
In practice, he'd probably put some into his SIP, wouldn't he? Because he's able to put up to his full amount, allowing for government relief and employee relief. Let's just say for ease that he puts 20,000 in there. And he might be able to use previous years and things. That's a little bit of homework for Gilberto to work out how much he's allowed to put into his SIP.
I love that Gilberto is getting homework. If anyone would like to volunteer to do Gilberto's homework.
Well, Anat's moving in with him, so she's got to pull her weight. Maybe she'll do some of his homework for him.
Exactly. Okay, so let's see what that does to the figures. And we're going to scroll across. You can see it's been modelled into his ISAs and his SIPs because they have increased in the second year. And then we're going to scroll down and see if he can actually retire at any point, which actually, by doing that...
We look at 68?
Yeah, looking at 68, he's got an annual amount he could withdraw in that last column and the 4% rule at 23.
It's gone up 10 grand, hasn't it?
It's gone up 10 grand.
That's pretty nice.
Huge. And then you go, well, he's got that plus his state pension. Well, now he's golden.
He's laughing.
From that age. And you start to go, well, what else could he do?
What to get even before then? Which, of course, he might have like a little bridge thing, which please use the bridging calculator as well to figure out some of these things that we talked about with the wonderful John Buston last week.
Exactly. Juliet says, I thought you could only put 20k in your ISA per year. Yes, you can. That column is ISA and GIA.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, we were not quite clear there where we said ISA, but we meant and the general account. Thank you for that, picking up on that, Juliet. LJ says, I don't understand how the front
tab says he never runs out of money, but the playground says he doesn't have enough before the house sale. So LJ, this is the slight bit of the spreadsheet gives you linear growth. So the spreadsheet shows linear growth, which means he would never run out of money because it's always growing by 7% a year. And he's spending, like, you could actually spend 7% a year in this model. But that's not good because of sequence of returns risk. You might well run out. So you just want to check like the difference between the sequence of returns risk bit and the 4% figure, and then the what's the word I'm looking for? What you can actually take out versus the spreadsheet says, because spreadsheets can they don't model everything in a simple spreadsheet like that. Please let me know if I confused you or whether that made any sense to you at all. It made sense to me in my head, but sometimes you don't know what comes out. Right, so he's actually improved his situation massively. Let's see if we could go even further.
We're going drastic. We're going more extreme. Are we saying sell the house in its entirety and rent, or live in a van?
How about sell the house, live in the van for a few years, and then buy a house later?
So he's selling his house. It's worth 500 grand. Is that the right number of zeros?
He's sold his house for 500 grand.
He will come back to spending.
He's going to invest that in his general investment accounts and ISAs.
So that's an additional 400.
So
480.
Okay. And how about he buys a van to live in?
How much is his van costing him?
I don't know. How much does a van cost? 30 grand? Seekers chanting, sell it all, sell it all, sell it all.
I've increased that. I don't know how much a van costs. Sorry, I'm out of touch, van lifers, with how much a van costs. We've put that it costs 30 grand for him to buy a van.
So he's going to live in a van for a few years, and then let's say he gets bored of the van in 5 years and buys a slightly smaller house.
I want to know if Anat's still moving in with Gilberto in his van. Can you respond, please, Anat? So he's buying a house back again, and is that what you're saying? So
Judith just highlighted a question: how come he got 500k but only invested 480? Judith, that's because we'd already sunk a bit into his SIP. Yeah, Gary spotted that as well. So sorry we didn't highlight that.
Okay, so he's going to buy a house. We just put that in spending, I guess.
We just put it in spending.
What is he going to buy as much of a house?
I think he's going to buy a 400 grand house.
Oh, good old Gilberto.
So
perhaps Anat will come back.
Maybe.
So
he sold his house, gone and lived in a van for a few years, and then bought a house back later on. And it's all okay because this is all inflation adjusted. So everything is okay with the figures.
Yeah. And a chunk of it he kept in this general account. So it meant that he could get to it, or the ISAs as well.
Exactly. Then we go back and go, well, what did that do to his figures? How did that help him? Well, it massively helped him with growth in the early years, and his amounts massively grew, but then he spent a huge amount of it on another house. So at 68 now, he's retiring wealthy. He could actually retire way before 68.
Oh, because he spends 30, doesn't he?
Yeah, he spends 30. So he actually...
3 years. That's just about 30 grand, isn't it?
Yeah. But he's also got his state pension coming, so he could probably retire a couple of years early. So this random move, going to live in a van for 4 years, could actually mean he retires 3-4 years earlier.
Yeah. And then you can play with these figures, right? Like, what if he left it a little bit later? You know, he doesn't want to live in a van into his late 60s, but maybe he does it a few years later, that he buys a place. I'm going to change this back to 30,000, and I'm going to say, okay, maybe he buys a place when he's 63 and he spends 250 on it because it's just him. He doesn't need a big place. Anat's ditched him. She doesn't like him anymore. So just to play with the figures, and this to show you the flexibility. It's like, oh, what if I didn't do that? What if I did it later? What if I did it earlier? And who knows how you'll feel at that point and what future decision would make. But this is to just have a look and see.
Seeker's encouraging him to move abroad. Yeah.
Well, yeah, look, if you move abroad, this is how you can model it. Okay, I'm going to move to Thailand and live off 15 grand a year. Well, maybe we just change that in this tab this is what we want you to get from this, is you just play with it and say, what if I moved to Thailand and I spent only 15 grand a year? My spreadsheet's gone funky, and I just need to copy this down because this is 15 now. And what impact does that have? Well, he's immediately financially independent if he's willing or wants to live in Thailand for the rest of his life. And look, this is just things you can play with. You may or may not want to live in Thailand. You may or may not want to downsize your house. You may love your house. You may be where you want to live for the rest of your life. We're just showing you how to play with this, how to look at the different ideas and start getting creative of like, ooh, what if I spent 5 grand less? What if I spent 5 grand more? What impact does that have on my numbers, where I end up, what I can do with my life?
Exactly. And the whole point of this spreadsheet is to enable you to model out different decisions you're thinking of. And we don't know what decisions you want to make or where you want to live. Someone in the chat, like, maybe you can move to Morocco.
I love that Gilberto is getting life advice. And that's moving in, like trying different countries.
It is indeed. Katrina in all caps says, thank you so much. This is life-changing. Like, this spreadsheet completely changed our lives because we're like, oh, what if we did this? Or how if we did that? What happens with our figures? And that was the whole purpose of tonight's session, was to show you how to use a spreadsheet to model out your financial future, because we don't know what life you want to live. So we want to give you the tools so that you can plan your own finances, live wherever you want to live, and do whatever you want to do. Sika says in the chat, Vietnam is the new Thailand. Apparently, we went to Vietnam, stayed there for a month. It was absolutely beautiful, and it was one of the cheapest places, less expensive places we've ever lived. It was amazing.
So we want you to take the emotion, which is obviously a very important part of your life, and couple it with the maths. It's like, am I willing to move house? Am I willing to move to a different point? What impact does that have? If I could retire 6-7 years earlier, am I willing to make that change? And just to have that knowledge coupled with the emotion, with the impact it will have on your friends, your family, how you feel about it overall, but remembering to use the maths as part of that decision.
And that's the key piece. And imagine, like, I know a lot of you on here have kids, have grandkids, have people in your lives. Imagine doing the spreadsheet with them and going, if you upped your employer contributions, by this age, you would be this. And by this age, this would happen. And this is what you could do with your life. And it's just an incredible tool to use with anyone you want to. Justine in the chat says, thank you so much. I'm quiet because I'm taking it all in. Fantastic. It's just a tool for you to use to help with your decision making, and knowledge does equal power, because then you can go and create your life however you want to from this. Rachel says, spreadsheet is incredible, life-changing to be able to map like this. It's exactly how we felt. So Anat says, did you make a life decision based on this spreadsheet? And that when we did the spreadsheet with the Mad Scientist, we were like, how much do we invest in ISAs? How much do we invest in SIPs? Can we retire? And we did the spreadsheet, and it was like, you can retire by Alan's 40th birthday. And we're like, wicked, let's do that. Let's see how high we can get our spending. Let's see how low we can get our spending, how high we can get our income. Let's see how quick we can get there. Let's do this percentage ISA and SIP. Like, it really changed everything for us doing that.
And this is something we come back to periodically. So, of course, the way the world pans out, what happens with your job, what happens with investments, will not be what you put in the spreadsheet. I'm sorry, the spreadsheet is not the real world. It will be different. Maybe it's higher, maybe it's lower, maybe you had some additional spending you weren't expecting. You can come back to this, update those figures in that first row and see what happens. This is something you come back to periodically. And, you know, it does assume that linear growth, and it doesn't assume tax. So there's these few extra elements that you do need to think about. And this is a really good first step to start to play with different ways of living, to play with what if I take a pay cut? because my job's too stressful, I can't be bothered with it anymore. I'm going to take a pay cut, have a much less stress role. What impact might that have? And it will be different to what the spreadsheet says, but it gives you an idea.
Exactly. Matthew says, how would we then need to calculate tax, including tax calculations into the spreadsheet? Several ways of doing it. You could up your spending a bit to allow for how much tax you're going to pay. You could up the amount you need in income, which is actually spending, isn't it? So yeah, you could just up your spending is the key bit by the amount of tax you need. So you could do that and model that.
Remember that the tax might not be as high as you think it might, because in the UK at least we get a bunch of allowances. I know that's the same in the US. For the UK stuff, have a watch of the week that we did with John Buston on drawdown that shows how the tax works on different scenarios. And
we'll have some notes coming up from that. Kate W says, it's a momentous occasion. Give Kate a round of applause. It's a momentous occasion. After weeks of chirping on for the last 11 weeks about this stuff, the husband has just asked me to send him this spreadsheet, and he's going to start from the beginning. So the husband is in.
Do you mean
we've won him over?
I assume that means.
I hope so.
Just at the beginning of the spreadsheet. Either way, it's amazing.
Amazing news. That is absolutely incredible. Kathleen said it would be fun to have a column that estimates the cost of raising a child for 18 years and how it would impact retirement. Kathleen, do that figure if you want to punish yourself.
Well, it might be if Kathleen's deciding whether to have a kid.
Or maybe you're going to show it to your teenager and go like, here's what it'll cost you. There are sums out there that will show you how much it costs to raise a kid, and they are scary sometimes.
Well, also, you could add a column to the spreadsheet into the spending, or just add it into what you think it is for those 18 years into the spending. That's the beauty of this, that you can adapt what we've got here, build on it.
Kevin had an interesting question. Kevin just wanted to go back to, can you explain how you get the inflation up every year but only have to input today's prices? The reason is you have the growth of the stock market, you have inflation, and growth of stock market minus inflation equals what is called real growth. And if you use real growth to increase your investments, then you've allowed for inflation and you don't have to inflate all of your spending figures and all of the other figures. So that's why you can just ignore inflation and have everything in today's figures, is because you've taken care of it in real growth. I hope that made sense. It has been an amazing session tonight. We've absolutely love it. Thank you so much for coming, YouTubers. Thank you for watching on YouTube. We love seeing your faces. Al Hanley's here, Ruth the Happy Saver, Teresa, Sika, Jane.
Thank you, Kiwis, for getting up early to spend with us in the future.
We love you. Please look after the future for us, because we're coming.
At an alarming rate.
Yeah, and Kiwis, we are actually, we think we're pretty much going to plan a trip in 2026 to come out and see you. So we want to come and hang out. Maybe Ruth will let us stay for a couple of days. We'd like that. Derek has said in the chat, please hit the like button if you found this valuable. Yes, on YouTube, Derek. Please hit like, subscribe if you found this valuable. I always forget to ask, but it really does make a difference. So we really appreciate that. Happy Saver says, this was worth getting out of bed early for, which is amazing. Keely says, thank you, Katie, the spreadsheet queen. Yes, you are.
Thank you to the fabulous ninjas who were answering your questions in the chat. We had Derek, Harriet, Lisa, Mark, Martin, and Gary as well. Hopefully, I
round of applause to the ninjas.
People in YouTube as well. Who did we have on YouTube? We had Simon. I saw popping up.
Saw Simon. Derek
was in that one as well. Thank you. This is a team effort, and we love hanging out with you.
It really does. Monique says, I don't know how the UK people do this. The excitement of doing these sessions, I could never sleep afterwards. Some of you are probably like, I want to sleep immediately after doing that much spreadsheet work.
I forgot to mention Conway. Conway, the fabulous ninja as well. Thank you, Conway.
Thank you, Conway. We really do appreciate you. It's absolutely
and John
Boston's here as well.
Amazing John.
And Emma.
I hope that's everyone. They're just wonderful, aren't they?
There's just so many ninjas. How do you thank them all? They are incredible. So yeah, YouTubers, you're absolutely amazing. We really appreciate you coming. Have a wonderful evening. Sheila says, this is a wonderful note to leave on. Sheila says, it's given me back my love for spreadsheets.
Where did the love go, Sheila? But I'm glad it's back.
Exactly. Leslie's like, my love never left. Always love spreadsheets. I love this. Thank you, Katie and Glamorous Assistant. Paul, am I a glamorous assistant? I wore the pineapple shirt, but I'm not sure I'm glamorous.
Of course you're glam.
It's been a wonderful evening. Okay, YouTubers, we're saying goodnight. Love you, YouTubers. Thank you so much for coming. You are absolutely amazing. Good night, YouTubers. What a night. Ending stream. Goodbye. Danielle says my pineapple shirt is ace.
Yes, it is.
Okay, ended. You are all free to swear now. So